Hi, friends. Welcome to Pause with the people at Trinity United Church in Prince George, British Columbia. As we get started, we want to acknowledge that it's our privilege to be able to join with you for this spiritual practice from the unceded traditional territory of the Lheidli T'enneh, and we give thanks for their stewardship of this part of Turtle Island for over 9,000 years. Well, it's Valentine's Day. And that brings with it a whole bunch of mixed stuff. Some folks would say Valentine's Day is just an excuse to drum up some sales in the midst of the winter doldrums. Christmas is come and gone, the bills have shown up, and when you hit February and kind of the midwinter blahs, there needed to be an excuse to generate some more retail activity. Why not Valentine's Day? Some would even call this a Hallmark occasion. After all, they seem to have kind of been behind it, at least in part. Of course, beyond that, beyond the commercialization of affection, there are some other things that come into this day. There's the expectation that you be partnered with someone. However you identify or express yourself, or however you're oriented, it doesn't seem to really matter anymore. It's the idea that you need to be partnered. If you're not in some kind of romantic relationship, then Valentine's Day kind of sets up that somehow you're less adequate. Somehow you're not fulfilling your responsibilities. Somehow you're not fitting the mold. You're not like everybody else. Well, regardless of your partnership status, I want to say this. It doesn't matter. Society may say it does. Your parents or your grandparents may say it does. Your best friends, for that matter, may say it does. But whether or not you're partnered to somebody else doesn't make you any more worthy or valuable or deserving of God's love. You are enough. If you've found somebody to share all of who you are with, fabulous, that's amazing. And if you haven't, if you're quite comfortable being you on your own, with a web of relationships, but you, first and foremost, then that's equally amazing. Our hope and prayer for you, wherever it is you find yourself, is that experience can be true for you. That in and of yourself, you know that you are enough. In and of yourself, you know that you are loved. Which brings us to the whole discussion of love in the first place. Valentine's Day does a really great job of focusing on one particular kind of love. If we're honest, it's really about eros, a Greek word from which we get the English word erotic, kind of sexual love, the physical, biological attraction between two people. It's kind of what Valentine's Day focuses on. And yet the Greeks were really pretty smart in lots of ways. At least their language, I would argue, was perhaps a little more developed than English has become. Because they really had 3 words for different kinds of loving expressions. So you had eros, which is that kind of sexual attraction, that sexual love that you might feel for someone. But then they had philo. And philo was a word that was used to describe the familial kind of love. It's the love you might have for your siblings or your parents or your aunts and uncles. That kind of love that develops because you're part of a web of family connections. Doesn't matter whether that family is defined biologically or relationally. That philo love can build and grow, nurture and sustain. And so the Greeks kind of said, okay, that makes sense. There's eros and philo. And then there was a third type called agape. And that's the kind of love that you might have towards anything or everyone. It isn't contingent upon biological orientation. It isn't contingent upon familial relationships. It is an open kind of love. And it's that kind of love that in the Second Testament that we find expressed in the Gospels and in the epistles. That agapic kind of love. A love from God to all humanity shown to us in the person of Jesus and the resurrection of Christ. A love that doesn't have barriers or preconditions. A love that is experienced and known. That uplifts and challenges. That comforts and sustains. It's a love that builds the deeper you move into a relationship and into understanding with one another. Thomas J. Oord talks about love in a new book, but really talks about it from the point of view of, in part, from forgiveness. And he talks about love as being a time-oriented form of forgiveness. That when we forgive one another, when we truly enter into the depth of that agapic expression, that forgiveness becomes an expression of love. So on this Valentine's Day, I'm inviting you to consider what that might mean for your own life. For yourself as a person, as an individual. What might be the things that you need to forgive as an expression of love for yourself? What might be the things that you need to forgive as an expression of love for others? And what might be the things you need to forgive as an expression of love for the world? Forgiveness as love for yourself, for others, for the world. And keep in mind that all of this forgiving isn't meant to happen at the snap of your fingers. Forgiveness is an expression of love that's time-oriented. In other words, it takes time to live into it. So if you have named something or someone and you go, but I can't just forgive that in this moment, that's okay. Because forgiveness is time-oriented love. And it's part of that agape. So take your time. Take your time to love and to forgive. Friends, let's join together in prayer. Be near us, Holy One, as we ponder how forgiveness is a time-oriented expression of love. Not just of our love for ourselves, love for those who we know, but your love. A deep, transcendent, and transformational love that nurtures and sustains, challenges and uplifts. Help us to call to mind the things within ourselves that we need to forgive. Help us to call to mind the things in others that we need to forgive. Help us to call to mind the things that we need to forgive in the world. Help us ground ourselves in an agape kind of love. A love that builds wider tables, adds more chairs, always has room for more. Always values others, includes them, seeks to understand them, welcomes them, affirms them. And when we need it, help us to find those spaces. Help us to find those tables. Help us to connect with folks who can share that kind of love with us. We'll go out on this day when we set aside and celebrate love between people. We acknowledge that every day is a day where we can experience your love. And so we pray this evening for those who believe that they are unlovable. We pray for those who would say they've never experienced love. We pray for those who feel they are beyond your love or ours. We pray for those who withhold love and use it like a weapon. We pray for those who have been on the receiving end of violence, camouflaged as love. And we pray for those who place the love of their needs and their wants, their sense of freedom, their race, their creed, their ability, their language, their fill in the blank above your love for each and every one of us. Help us to recognize that the tapestry you weave is a love that can withhold anything the world can throw at it. And in so doing, help us to be your people in this time and this place. So be it. Amen. Friends, thanks for joining with us here for Pause at Trinity United Church in Prince George, British Columbia. We do it 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They go live at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Wherever it is you find yourself in this moment, we sincerely hope it's a place where you can be safe and be calm and be community. Together, let's invest in the common good and common health of one another, and let's find ways to love one another. After all, at the heart of the gospel, love is what we'll find. That's it for now. We'll see you again next time on Pause.